I want to bring you a gift today, a gift of rapid innovation to help you make a breakthrough in your practice. After leading the largest ever study of award-winning innovation and helping 4,000 people create breakthroughs, I'm confident that if you go to a few unusual places today with me, you'll be far more likely to create breakthroughs in your practice. The first place I'd like to take you is deeper in your patients and in your staff's minds, not just their mouths. Discover what really matters most to them in their lives and about what you do. I think I started learning this long ago at my first job. I was 15. Sadly, my dad had just died, and so my mom knew I needed work because I was going into a deep hopelessness. So I went to Dan's Foods. I met a professional leader, Mr. Brown, and he hired me to be a bagger. But a colleague, Dave, my age, taught me and trained me to rush to check stands, to bag the groceries perfectly, and to help every single customer out to their car. And so the first Saturday came, it was prime time. Mrs. Sheen came to buy her groceries, and I went and I bagged her groceries, and I stacked the bottles underneath the cart. And we went out to her car. But as I hit the lip of the parking lot that was sloped, all those glass Pepsi bottles flew out from under the cart and broke like fire. I was mortified. I just grabbed a 20. I panicked and I ran into Mr. Brown immediately and I tried to hand him a 20. He said, no, just go clean that up. Well, you can imagine the second Saturday when I had Mrs. Skeen walk in. I rushed to her check stand. I apologized. I started bagging her groceries. And she was in a hurry. And so I trotted to keep up with her. And as she rushed out, suddenly she stops at the door and she reaches down for a free newspaper. And I bury the shopping cart bar right in her Achilles tendon. And she falls and she screams. And I just wanted to cry with her. Mr. Brown gave me a very dirty look and pointed his finger a lot at that moment. But Dave pulled me aside, and Dave said, look, that was truly bad luck. But don't worry, you're doing great. You are so amazing with all the other parents. I swear you're going to be promoted soon. So I decided to keep going. And the third Saturday came, and Mrs. Sheen shows up at check stand 4. You can imagine I didn't rush. I kind of cowered away until I heard this announcement over the PA. Mr. Brown says, Mark Cook, check stand 4. Mark Cook, check stand 4. So I bow my head. I go over to check stand 4 with Mrs. Sheen. I bag her groceries. I stay clear away from her. I'm determined to pack those groceries perfectly in the corner of the back of her car. And I did. And in victory, I pulled that hatchback and I swung it down. And I just noticed at the very end that the corner buried right in her scalp and took her to her knees again. And she screamed like, oh my gosh. I got a very serious tongue lashing from my professional leader, Mr. Brown. But Dave pulls me aside near the back of the store and he says, look, I want to tell you something about yourself. No one understands and learns the children of these people like you do. You are exceptional. Just keep going. It's all going to work out. And sure enough, I got promoted to the esteemed camera bar. Now, I want you to think about the lesson, the contrast between the professional leader, Mr. Brown, and my friend Dave. And decide right now if you're going to dig deeper into your staff and into your patient's mind and not just their mouths. Because it changes your business, I guarantee it. The second place I want to take you is an unusual place. The spaces and the places where your patients eat, smile, talk, and laugh. The places they display your work. A patient of Dr. Randall noticed the difference. Dr. Randall is a client of mine who deals with young patients. And as we discussed in a session how to go to their schools and meet the principals, explore the hallways, go to the games where they're laughing and yelling, and people are seeing those teeth and feeling confident or not, we also took him to the mall. I took him personally, and we stepped back and we looked through the lens of improvement and watched his potential patients work and play and socialize. It blew his mind. It was so surprising to him. He got out his camera, he turned into a little photojournalist. I couldn't even get him out of the mall when our time was up. He was learning so much and thinking. The result? Well, this mild-mannered, fairly sedate professional blossomed into this relationship professional where he knew all about these people's lives and had passion for these people he served, not just in the obvious ways, but in the less obvious ways. So I want to challenge you immediately to go out and find 30 more ideas on how you can connect to these human beings that are with you by going into the spaces and the places where they live and they smile. The third place I want to take you is into a conversation with what I call adjacent experts. Now, what is that? Well, we have a box. It's your particular type of practice. And just outside it, adjacent, there are professionals that serve the same type of people you do, but do something slightly different or a lot different. I think one of the great examples is outside of your industry. There's a London hospital that occasionally gets ER patients that are so serious they have to rush them to the operating room. And because this is an unusual process, they would make mistakes occasionally. At one point, they were losing lives, and so something had to be done. And so they gathered the greatest experts and brainstormed like we usually do, sticking things on the wall and such. It didn't work, because it usually doesn't. They barely made any progress until one day the doctor was walking through the waiting room and saw this Formula car race on the screen, and all of a sudden this pit crew shows up and they renew 4 entire systems on the car, and it races off in 6 seconds. Less time than I told the story. And he thought, light bulb, I need to call him. And he called him, and he called him, and he called him until they finally returned his call. He said, we don't know anything about surgery. We don't know anything about hospitals. We can't help you. And he says, please, just trust me. If you could just talk to me. After just a few conversations, they reduced the errors in that process 50% because it was a different swimming pool. So I want to tell you about a client, Dr. War, who got the courage up to call his accountant because he served high-end professionals, and that was his ideal patient. And he asked his accountant, who served the same type of people, if he could shadow him. And he did. And it blew his mind. So he traveled clear across the United States and sat in chairs of oral surgeons and such. And he discovered little ideas about how to remove the TV from high on the wall to right in the ceiling where you're seeing it as you lie in the chair. He discovered big things like how to romance the presentation of the great crowns that he purchased and ensure the placement securely for life. He's a better salesman than the rest of my clients that sell. He's amazing because he had conversations with adjacent experts. Finally, I want you to find yourself after these 3 activities in a huge pile of new ideas to improve your practice. And I want you to search through that haystack for 2 needles, the 2 best ideas, the 2 that are most synergistic, and experiment on your practice, which will lead you to the final place, which is a new finish line. Not the finish line where you finish your work, but the finish line where the patients are delighted and thrilled with what your relationship is. Please go to these 5 places, and I appreciate the time that you've listened to me. Thank you very much.